about food and money. If everybody's favorite subject, no, and maybe sex too, but not today. Outline and presentation of food and money. Um, the intention of the talk uh, is for everyone to hopefully have an aha moment. And I'd like to know towards the end of the uh, hour if you did or didn't. And to come away with three simple maxims, three simple, three simple maxims. So if you have a piece of paper or a notebook, grab a pen and write this down. Yeah, you got a minute for that? And while we're hopefully everybody wants to do that and then they get filled in as we go through the presentation. So write down three maxims by David R. One, two, three. Okay. By the way, this presentation is available on my website, www.davidsnieckus.com at the article tab. I'll be presenting this in the share screen momentarily so you can get it later. And if you stay on here till the end of the show, because sometimes I might be boring, I don't know. I have a nice surprise for you around 11:50. Well, 11:50 my time, or in about 45, 50 minutes. So very quickly, I'm going to do the outline, 1 minute outline. Food and Money is the name of the presentation with a macrobiotic slant. There's a 15-minute section about food. Introduction, my time before macrobiotics. That's about 5 minutes or less. Some basic macrobiotic principles and lessons, including the order of the universe, the book of Genesis from the Bible, the history of food, that's Michaux's plant and animal evolutionary chart, and nature's law of Aristotle and Thomas Jefferson. So this is a back to basic course. I think that was recommended for my talk by Janat and Sheldon. And so that to be about the food part. The about money part is my involvement in the study of money. After a friend, you may know him, Arlen Baden, talked to me in 2005, 2007. And then I have a chart called The Evolution of Money in Agricultural and Civilization. And then finally, there'll be a about food and money presentation. And that's a summary, of course, about food and money. And then a little final 1 minute note on the COVID-19. Okay, everybody got the outline? Let's go start into the lecture about food and money. My thumbnail biography, which I could go on for hours about, but I'm going to just go quickly. I have to read what I have because I write it down. I was born in 1947 to a highly Catholic family, raised in a meat-eating family 3 times a day, and culture for 30 years or so. So that's my basic upbringing. In high school, I met an atheist. That was a surprise. I didn't know anybody didn't believe in God. So then I went to college to avoid the draft, but I was sent to Vietnam anyways. There I learned the enormity of the military-industrial complex that you remember, if most of you might remember Eisenhower saying that, Dwight D. Eisenhower, based on a violent mindset to enforce American imperialism, including eavesdropping on everyone, everywhere, enemy and friendly. I work for the ASA, which is the Army Security Agency. It's the Army's leg of the NSA. That's the National Security Agency, which I'm sure you all heard of. And I quit due to a betrayal by an MP in the policy of the Army and the government that at that time and still is. But by working for and at the NSA, in which everything is monitored, believe me, everything is monitored. That place is as big as Rhode Island. I learned my first maxim number 1, and you could write this one down. Act as if everything you will that act as everything you do will be known, because it will. These people monitor everything. Even when I was in Vietnam, they monitored everything friendly and the enemy. After Vietnam, I got married, had a great money life insurance job, but was not fulfilling. So in 1977, 30 years after I was born, I found the book of Macrobiotics. It was just published that year, by the way. And it's the universal way to health and happiness. I had to read this book by Michio Kushi. And I became inspired to learn about this concept called macrobiotics, especially the order of the universe. After a couple of dinners with Bill and Joan Spear, I think everybody might know them, I'm not sure, in Middletown, Connecticut, I went to Boston to study until 1981. There I studied with Sherman Goldman, Bill Timms, Bill Spear, Bill Tara, and quite a number. Even at the third Mid-Atlantic Summer Camp, I met Asher Lazar, who some of you may or may not have known. And I can't think of anybody, a few other people, of course, Michio and Aveline. And after I divorced, I traveled the country cooking and getting real life experiences. What had happened for me is that I went to Macrobiotics to study the philosophy of macrobiotics. But what am I going to do with the philosophy of macrobiotics? So there was a class called cooking classes in Boston. And so it was an elective that I quote unquote had to take, but it really is the only application for macrobiotic understanding is the practical application. I think George Asawis said something along the lines of philosophy without practice is useless, and practice without philosophy is dangerous. So both of them together was a great experience for me. I'm very grateful for that. Of course, that study in macrobiotics and the cooking experience throughout the country led to my learning the second maximum number two. Number two, eat well and everything will be all right. That I had to leave with all that niceties and all that philosophy and all the things about the liver and the gallbladder and all those things and emotions. I had to let all that go, and it just oozed out of me in saying, if I eat well and quote unquote obey the order of the universe, I'm going to be fine. This leads to the question, what is the best food to eat? Somebody eating over there, Liz. What's you eating there, Liz? This is addressed by reviewing some basic macrobiotic principles and lessons, including the order of the universe, the book of Genesis from the Bible, the history of food, plant and animal evolution chart, and nature's law of Aristotle and Thomas Jefferson. So in the order of the universe, and let me see if I can put this up on the screen, share screen. I don't know if I could. Order of the universe here. Okay. How do I get that up there? Oh dear. Well, I don't know if I could. Oh, share. Okay, there we go. Everybody can see that? The order of the universe. Okay.
Yeah, we see it fine.
Okay, great. So biologically, if the black section there, animal world, including humanity, I knew I came from my parents, and they in turn came from their parents, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, ad infinitum or ad nauseum. But in order to survive, humans or animals, that black area, need to eat from the world of plants or animals, right? The humans need to eat plants or animals. And the plant or animals, mostly eat what? They mostly eat the plant food. In order for the plant world to survive, plants need the world of the elements. And the elements consist of subatomic particles. And these subatomic particles are made up of the endless energy patterns of yin and yang. Yin and yang being a bifurcation or that comes from the endless expansive movement. So if infinity is always moving, you can see that it collides once in a while, and this sets up yin and yang. So basically, we come from infinity, we exist in infinity, and we return to infinity. That's a takeaway that I got from macrobiotics. The food we need to eat as humans for our survival on this planet is the energy that comes from infinity and is available most effectively or easily in the plant world. As animals, we eat directly or indirectly from the visible world of plants, and we eat the elements, the water, soil, and the fire coming from photosynthesis. And the quality of these elements affects our food, which in turn affects the quality of our health, and which in turn affects our consciousness. So this is the general overall view of the order of universe that took me 7 years to get. So if you could get it in 7 minutes, more power to you. Everything, everything in this world, no matter where it is in the chart, came from the previous stage and is changing to the next stage. Everybody get that? Yes, no. I guess there's not much a response on be able to do the response. Okay, so in conclusion, for the order of the universe, is that we are infinity, we are God, and we are love. Okay, so in the book of Genesis in the Bible, it mentions one thing that I found interesting is that there are quite a few similarities and parallels between the book of Genesis and the order of the universe, which I've never read the Bible before I studied macrobiotics, only after in my study of verification of this order of the universe, because it was kind of confusing at first. What is all that infinity stuff? But they couldn't get it in my mind. So really that's what macrobiotics is all about, called greater life, the word itself. So that makes it makes things that you know or don't know in challenging and inquisitive and curiosity. So in my curiosity and consciousness raising, I read the Genesis book. So it says, and I'm just quoting now, when God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, that's infinity, with darkness over the surface of the deep and the wind from God sweeping over the water. That's the infinity or cosmic life you see there, the energy. And God said that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. That's the bifurcation. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, a first day. Yin and yang was formed, right? God made the expanse, and it separated the water that was below the expanse from the water which was above the expanse, and it was so. Energy of space and time. And God said, let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry land may appear. This is the formation of the subatomic particles. Okay. The earth brought forth vegetation and seed-bearing plants of every kind, and trees of every fruit-bearing fruit at seed. Oh, I forgot one part. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of waters he called sea, and God saw that it was good. This is the world of the elements. The next part that we come down. Everybody following this? I suppose you are. The earth brought forth vegetation, seed-bearing plants of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that was good. That's the evolution of plants. That's the plant world. That's the second one right above the black part there. And then it goes on, the Bible goes on and says, God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures and the birds that fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky. Evolution of the animal world. Okay. And then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. They shall rule the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky, the cattle, the whole earth, and all the creeping things that creep on humanity. That's the evolution of humanity. That's what show that in the next chart also. So what we have here is finally, the book of Genesis goes on and says, God said, see, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, and they shall be yours for food. Basically, what that's saying, eat grain, the most evolved plant life on the earth, because grain is the only fruit-bearing seed. You see any botany studies on that, like, an apple might have a seed, and um, various pickles have, various cucumbers have seeds, but rice is the only fruit-bearing seed. So with that said, the conclusion is grain is recommended by the Bible, or some say by God. Of course, it's written by man. So it is the creation, the book of Genesis, which leads to the history of food. Now, how would I do this now? How do I, can you stop? Oh, stop share. Okay. And then go to screen share and pick up this one. Okay. Okay, and share. Okay, now this is the plant and animal, okay. Plant and animal evolution. Everybody sees that. So the part uh, uh, where the black part of humanity, the animal world, and the plant world meet starts on the far left of this chart. So with the principle of everything changes in mind, I briefly summarize the above chart, or the chart on the Zoom, that I learned from Michio. 4 billion years ago, the Earth was a humid, gaseous state. Over the millions of years, viruses and bacteria formed and roamed the fresh waters. As the fresh water started getting salty, with minerals entering the water, the virus and bacteria built themselves a wall called an amoeba. Well, I forget what the wall is called, but they created amoebas to contain themselves. These amoebas divided about 3.2 billion years ago, beginning the evolution of plants and animals. The first indication of a true plant were these primitive algae and sea moths. Okay. At the same time, these amoebas started the animal evolution with jellyfish-like characteristics, because they were just spongy little things running around in the water. The plant world always preceded the animal world, as I just shown in the order of the universe, as the animals needed to eat plants to sustain themselves. It just makes common sense. It just follows logic. Plants needed the minerals and elements of the ocean to feed them. Of course, many other influences were occurring to evolve the plants and animals. Changes in climate, changes colder, sometimes warmer, changes in the Earth's polar shifts, such as the Earth's north and south poles, going from star Vega to the North Star. Changes in celestial energy as the Earth's solar system was influenced by the increasing and decreasing energy of the Milky Way. All these things were happening over this period of time that you see on the chart. Oh yeah, look at that. Over time, sea mosses that ate more and more minerals transformed into firmer types of sea vegetables like wakame, hijiki, and kombu. You see that sea mosses, primitive algae, sea vegetables, seaweed. Jellyfish that started to form, that started eating these sea vegetables, created a spine like seahorses. So you can see those having a seahorse. As land appeared, some of the sea vegetables evolved to become ancient land mosses, okay, and primitive grasses. Animals that made it out of the ocean became amphibians, okay, sea vertebrates, amphibians. Primitive land vegetables over here grew to ancient plants that you might have seen in Jurassic Park, right? Eventually, the amphibians transformed into huge reptiles, like the dinosaurs seen in Jurassic Park. As the ancient plants transformed into modern plants as the climate became cooler, plants with seeds and fruit trees became abundant. These these large reptiles became smaller and eventually changed into mammals. Then the seed plants changed into modern day cereal grains, and the apes that ate grain over 10 million years ago stood up and became man. And that's the over here, you see the mammals, the mammals, apes that ate grain, ate the grain, became man. That is the evolution of plant and animal evolution. It's the same thing that's described in the Genesis of the Bible also. What is important to note here is the evolutionary line here from grains to vegetables to ancient plants to land mosses to seed vegetables to seaweed is that the macrobiotic way encourages us to follow the sequence of the plant evolution. So we start over here with a little miso soup in our daily meals, namely fermented miso soup, along with some seaweed, right? Every morning you have a little bit of miso soup, you're eating the virus and bacteria, along with a little sea vegetables, ancient plants, modern plants, all the onions and burdock and carrots and onions, then some grain, particularly whole rice, the most evolved grain. Okay. Now, interestingly, this animal evolution, right, of 3.2 billion years is, this is where I hope you're getting your aha moment, maybe not, is recapitulated. In other words, this 3.2 billion year evolutionary process is repeated in the mother's gestation period of 9 months. All pregnancies have a human being that goes through all these stages. You can see it in any museum. It's just so much common sense to macrobiotics. It amazes me. This, when I had that lectured to me 40 years ago, I just went, aha, I have my macrobiotic moment. This is what convinced me of macrobiotics, these order of the universe and this chart. Okay. In conclusion, regarding the history of food and what best food to eat, we see from the chart the evolution of plants and animals, as well as a recommendation of God or the Bible from the book of Genesis, that grain, being the most evolved plant life on the earth, is our primary food. It is the fruit-bearing seed. It is my understanding and experience that eating grain every day involves our consciousness from what I used to be an egotistical, meat-eating, and violent mindset. That's me, I had that, to a more peaceful consciousness that embraces all humanity. In a funny way, I see my father eating meat. He's striking the table. Me eat. Get it? Yeah, I don't know. Me eat. Very egotistical. Yeah. All right. And while eating grain in Boston and around the table, everybody eating a large, long table. We had all the macrobiotic houses. It was eating grain. We eat. We eat. So much calm, so much more peaceful. You know, a little funny there. I try to throw it in, make it a little funny. All right. So this verifies nature's law. And nature's law, what is that? The Greek philosopher Aristotle suggested that human virtue is not imposed from without, but blossoms from within. All of the macrobiotics, everything in the macrobiotics says the same thing. It's how you're feeling, it's your health inside that manifests to your outer behavior. People feel a natural inclination to ideas of fairness, human rights, and equality. We know in our hearts what is right and wrong. And in fact, we have lectures on the better world. Okay. And we know in our hearts what is right and wrong. This struck a philosophical chord that has resonated ever since Aristotle's time and resulted in an awareness of what was later called natural laws or nature's law. When Thomas Jefferson wrote Laws of Nature into the Declaration of Independence in 1776, he was referring to an Enlightenment concept deeply rooted in Western philosophy. In later writings, Jefferson elaborated. Nature has written her moral codes on the head and heart of every rational and honest man, where man may read them for himself. If ever you are going to say anything amiss or do something wrong, consider beforehand, you will feel something within you which will tell you it is wrong and ought not to be said or done. This is your conscience, and be sure and obey it. Conscience is the only sure clue which may eternally guide a man or woman clearly of all his doubt, his or her doubts and inconsistency. Eating well evolves our consciousness. Many of us heard the statement, we are what we eat. Indeed, the quality of our food affects the quality of our consciousness and our health. Hippocrates, the Greek physician at the age of Pericles at classical Greece time, considered one of the most outstanding figures in the history of medicine, often referred to as the father of medicine, stated, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." I'm sure you all heard it, and I'm preaching to the choir, I suppose. But Hippocrates also asked his clients, "Who cooks for you?" This is an important aspect of health, as the cook could instill the energy of love or hate into the food. So in the near future, available for all of you in our collaborative book with Margaret and Abigail, we took the sound of the barred owl, hoo-hoo, 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 who cooks for you? Okay. When we eat well, we feel well, are healthy, and are most mindful, are most mindfully conscious and integrated. When we don't eat well, we experience dis-ease, which can result in various illnesses, and we are not as mindful and conscious. Instead, we are fragmented. As we heal and become whole through the healthy food we eat, so does our planet heal, and we become become whole. As within, so without. My consciousness after eating food from Bill Spear in Boston in 1977, 78, led me to go to Boston to study macrobiotics and food. And in 2005, my conscience led me to follow the money. A friend of mine, Arlen Benning, came here and sat down at the chair, and he said, 3 buildings went down on 9/11. So I started following the money. The next section is on money. What is money? Well, my involvement in the study of money, of course, is a few years after 2001, a vegan from New York City told me 3 buildings went down on 9/11. I was stunned. I read the newspapers and there was no mention of that. So to address the confusion, I began a research that led me to following the money. I spiraled down this crazy mind twist of money and its creation. Just like I studied where our food came from, I had to know where money comes from. Money, being the creation of man, has an evolutionary process as well, which I identify on the chart. Evolution of food and money, evolution of money and agriculture and civilization. This one I hopefully may be able to get. So the history of money starts, 10,000 years ago, where where the other chart ended, where this chart ends right here, right here. That this chart that I'm going to show next starts right over here. Let's see, but I don't know if I can get this one up. Stop the share. Oops, leave. No, don't want me doing this. Oh, share station. Okay. I don't know if Abigail has this here or not. Oops. Oh, that's. Oh, oh no, I don't know. Sorry, what's going on here? I might need my daughter's help. Ah, oh, okay. All right. Can you get the share the chart you made? Okay. All right. As the chart has come up with the help of my daughter. uh, oh yeah, you have to go here. Yeah. Do that one there. Okay, you got it. All right. So the origin of money, 10,000 years ago. No. Okay. Was a receipt for grain. So the farmers 10,000 years ago were all small farmers, and they put and someone had a silo or a grain place. So they stored the grain. So you put the grain in that you work for your community. Oh, thank you there. Okay. You got a receipt, and that receipt were were good. Were the receipts, whether they were in stone or paper or in your mind, were good for exchanging goods and services. An honest monetary system evolved. Everyone knew the receipts were good for some portion of grain that was stored in a silo. No one was hungry. It was all more or less free. That's what gifting cashless society 10 million years ago. So that's where the first money came from, in my opinion. However, as everybody might know, grain spoils. Therefore, the value of the receipt decreased. However, as a result, the receipts were not hoarded. Nobody hoarded money because the money was spent into circulation and redeemed before the grain could spoil. Everybody get that? Since grain spoiled and metal did not, gold or copper or whatever, but gold became a prominent accepted means of exchange. Honest at first, but as we all know, everything changes. The deception began. Goldsmiths, who originally held the physical gold for safekeeping and issuing honest receipts, started issuing receipts without gold backing and charging interest. At the same time, merchants and other people using it, seeing it was more convenient to use the receipts than the actual gold, demanded more paper money, the receipts. Loans started, and interest on money began. Usury. It was banned for a long time because of the problems we're having. Even you see them today. A thesis, perhaps, money became a deception, an illusion that seems real, as we started eating food, and that's my belief, not of the order of the universe, but based on more processed and animal-based diet, thereby affecting our consciousness to deceive and be deceived. Paper money is a great example. As we know, and I didn't know this before for a long time myself, Federal Reserve notes that we use in America, and I suppose around the world, they're really pieces of paper with ones, fives, tens, 20s, and hundreds written on them, and are printed by a private company. And they are really just an IOU. That's all they are, just as if you brought your grain to the silo, you got a receipt. So that's everything here is 10 million years ago. This is the line of the agriculture and civilization. Food became surplus. It was highly creative artisans. They were building in the Middle Ages. It was relative stability until the dishonesty set in with paper money, non-gold backed loans, and the mechanized farming here after the Industrial Revolution. Then we had the Federal Reserve come in, which is really just a private company creating money for their private benefit. And then we go off the gold standard. We have plastic money, the cards, which still have those today. We have digital currency. And we have giant corporations here, all agreeing to maximize profits. So finally, the food and money summary. I believe paying attention to quality food sources is our priority in its eventuality. And that when it comes to choosing between food and money, our priorities are often backwards, and mine were. And as stated by an Indian elder, when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish caught, and the last river poisoned, only then we will realize that one cannot eat money. My vision, of course, is have every kitchen is a wellness center in a one peaceful and healthy world. For an in-depth article, our kitchens at wellness centers, you can visit my website and check that one out. Currently, generally speaking, our poor food habits throughout the world, and especially in America, affect our consciousness and fragmented behavior. Our current food habits mirror our relationship with money, the state of our economy and world, and our corrupt monetary system and our industrialized food system. Money has become a love obsession for many of us, including myself for a long time. In my humble opinion, we base our lives on the illusion of money rather than the reality of food. Why would that be? I believe that because we are eating processed food, or when we do eat processed food, we are accepting illusionary money. In addition, our monetary system requires us to earn money for our living instead of simply doing what we need to do to live and serve our communities. We have to go to work, so we can't serve our community. We can't make macrobiotic meals all the time for our friends because we have to go to work. Foods in the form of packaged and processed food, including vitamin pills, are advertised to give us strength, energy, more sex, and beauty, which is an illusion we buy. We can get it from just eating well. My number one maxim. Some number two maxim. While our economy facilitates the movement of goods and services, it is also based on a corrupt monetary system, unsustainable growth, and the depletion of our natural resources. Our first money receipts for grain, which was honest money. So allow me to quote Benjamin Franklin here. There seems to be but three ways for a nation to acquire wealth. The first is by war, as the Romans did and America has done, in plundering their conquered neighbors. This is robbery. The second is by commerce, which is generally cheating. The third is by agriculture, the only honest way, wherein man receives a real increase of the seed thrown into the ground in a kind of continual miracle wrought by the hand of God in his favor as a reward for his innocent life and virtuous industry. Currently, our monetary system is debt based. All money is ultimately borrowed at interest, rendering us debt and wage slaves. Instead, our monetary system should be a public utility based on funding what communities consider good. Further, our corrupt monetary system favors big chemical and industrialized agriculture and factory farming, which undermines the quality of our food. The economy is organized to favor large farming enterprises rather than the farmer. This results in food based on lower nutritional value, fatty meat, sugar, processed food, fake food, GMO, additional hormones, chemicals, and preservatives. And very importantly, depleted soil from which our food is grown, which I think Alex mentioned. We get a false picture of what nutrition is, which is based on whole foods, not its components grown in nutrient-rich soil. Um, Finally, the world we know in our hearts is possible, which is the nature's law, because it's based on claiming our own sovereignty. It's changing our debt-based monetary system, which renders us debt and wage slaves, to a credit-based monetary system as a public utility empowered by community. Eliminating, the world we know in our hearts is possible is by eliminating factory farming and the tendency for shipping food to or importing food from everywhere around the world. We can return to knowing and supporting our farmer, such as with community-supported agriculture. We can support local organic retailers and wholesalers, such as Erewhon, of course, which went out of business, but when Michel started, by the way. We could return to a more healthy, dignified, and sustainable agrarian and crafts-based lifestyle. And of course, eating wholesome, organic food grown by ourselves and local farmers. And of course, eating well to evolve our health consciousness. Knowing where our food comes from is very important. I hope the last three charts have showed you about our food and money. But also there's the Slow Food Movement. It's a global grassroots founded in 1989 to prevent the disappearance of local food cultures and traditions, and does a great job in educating people. Since its beginning, slow food has grown into a global movement involving millions of people in over 160 countries, working to ensure everyone has access to good, clean, and fair food. Oh yeah, good. Slow food believes food is tied to many aspects of life, including culture, politics, agriculture, and the environment. Through our food choices, we can collectively influence how food is cultivated, produced, and distributed, and change the world as a result. It's through our actions, through our buying power, which we need money for. I have a little surprise for everybody, if you don't mind. Um, we do weekly dinners. We have until the crisis started, and I have a wholesome farm in Woodbury. This is where I get my exercise and oxygen in Connecticut, where I'm growing grains, including rice and vegetables. In summary, I include all of us to eat wholesome, organic, mostly plant-based local foods, especially grain, in harmony with the seasons, which is the macrobiotic way for one peaceful world. And of course, my last summary, maxim number 3, trust the order of the universe, as stated by Joseph Campbell. Follow your bliss. When I did, I stopped focusing on making money, looked to food as my security, and the food and money came when I needed it. The final word about virus. Uh, Virus has been around for 4 billion years, are within us, and will destroy us if we have a compromised immune system. I suggest eating as best you can according to the order of the universe, what the Bible says to eat, and as best as you can, obey nature's law. Follow your consciousness. Thank you very much. This talk is available, and we have a song. Huh? Oh, we have time for a song. Net says we have a time. Yes, go ahead. Yes, please. Any quick questions?